This review will contain detailed plot points and spoilers. It is recommended to view this film before listening to this episode. You have been warned. Welcome to the Nerdiverse. Go ahead, sit and listen to the masters, the old heads, talk about what you love the most. Video games, comics, movies, and everything you need to maintain your week. Got the knowledge that's straight out the ether. Gonna need a drink and have to take a seat to expand your mind and listen to the speaker. Mike and the squad's gonna give you what you need. Please send in a question, come and get some answers, learn a couple lessons from the masters with the special guests. We got the Green Lanterns glowing on their chest. Yes, please sit back and relax, cause we gonna hit you with them stone cold facts. And allow me to be the very first to welcome you to the masters of the Nerdiverse. Welcome to MOTN Reviews. This is Masters of the Nerdiverse Reviews, where we take a look at some of cinema's most shiniest supernovas and some that are not so brightly lit. This old TV show of a podcast can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Spreaker, SoundCloud, YouTube, iHeartRadio, Google Play, Spotify, and now Amazon Music. We're spreading through the universe like the flood in Halo lore.
Oh shit, we're on Amazon Music now?
Yeah, man.
Oh damn.
Yeah, man, we're getting up there.
Let's creep on in that.
Yeah, man, let's get some of that Amazon cashola. You know,
Bezos needs to pay his taxes.
Bezos will. He refuses to. We're not going to go there, though. My co-host with the most, who's smoother than avocado toast, is Mr. Ozzy Austin.
Yay! Introduction.
Introduction to thesis. Austin, are you in fact a vampire? You just haven't told me yet.
I mean, if I was, it would match my pasty complexion. Let's put it that way.
Nice. Because you don't need the sun anymore if you're a vampire. You know, you don't need it. What's the sun substitute for vampires? The moon?
Maybe?
The moon? This movie raises some interesting questions about vampire lore, about how vampires work in this particular universe. And I think it's quite neat. So the movie we're talking about today was made in 1989, the year of our Lord, directed by Spider-Man himself, Tom Holland. You do the math on that one.
No, that's not it.
Do the math, though. He was there.
Tom Holland, when he was like
0
not even a
years old.
twinkle in his dad's eyes.
He operated his father like Krang from Ninja Turtles to make this movie. Tom Senior.
Not at all. That's not what happened.
Fright Night.
Okay, so Tom Holland, for those who really want to know the actual truth, is a director born in 1943, you know, when World War II was ending, just for frickin' reference, made Child's Play. It's that guy, and he made this movie called Fright Night as well.
I stand by my words.
Mike, you freaking blow hard.
I fear no reprisals.
Oh my god.
Oh my god. I forgot that he directed Child's Play, another one of my favorite 80s classics. You know what I mean?
I think he kind of came back for the remake recently, too.
Yeah, he gave it his blessing, or whatever that means. He collected the check, pretty much.
He also did The Langoliers by Stephen King.
Nice.
And he wrote, I think he did something for Tales of the Crypt. I can't really remember.
Maybe like an episode. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Cool. Both Child's Play and Fright Night 2 both do the same thing, which is kind of a submersion of the genre. Kind of like, okay, we're going to take this common thing, like a vampire, or this common thing like a killer doll, and modernize it to make it make sense in a weird way. And kind of, everyone's aware of it. So, it's, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get that.
And I was watching this movie and I was like, it's kind of like Scream, you know, like it's a take on horror. It's an obvious homage and take on the vampire genre. Cause everybody knows the rules, right? It's like,
yeah, it's like sunshine, faith and religion, garlic, apparently stakes of wood. in general.
That's one thing I wanted to talk about too, is that with our vampire named Jerry, which is the funniest thing in the world, it seems like he has an adherence to wood in general, not just through the heart, but anywhere.
Is it just, it's like the symbolism of being staked, honestly? Because that's what I kind of want to imagine, is that there's one scene, I guess we have to reference this to be honestly fair. Also fair, this is the original, not the really crappy, even worse remake.
Even though, rest in peace, Anton Yelchin, that movie was not great. Yeah.
So in the scene, Charlie is assaulted by Jerry in his own home, and to defend himself, he takes a pencil and stabs it through Jerry's hand, and Jerry has the most adverse reaction to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, goes full on monster form in like a few seconds.
It legit weakens him like kryptonite or something like that, right?
I guess it's like the symbolism of being staked that did it, honestly.
I think, and vampires always have this kind of through line to Judas of Iscariot. It is like the idea of being like in into the crucifixion, of being staked to the cross kind of situation. I think that's where that kind of comes from, but don't quote me on that. But I like the idea that vampires are just like, no, wood is horrible. Anywhere, if I get a splinter, it's a bad day for a vampire. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And whenever we first see this movie, it's kind of like Disturbia. It's like, oh, bored kid peeping on his neighbor and assumes the worst. And it's like, haha, funny.
And to go even further back than that, even Hitchcock's Rear Window, you know what I mean? It's like, I'm looking out my window like anybody would. You look into the neighbor's yard and you see something nefarious go down, but you're also a stupid kid. Which makes it doubly worse. At least Cary Grant had the added bonus of being an adult. People taking him pseudo seriously. But I love this movie because it puts you in a position where it's like, okay, this is real life, right? Like if I called you, Austin, man, I saw a vampire in my backyard last night. What are you going to tell me, right?
I'm going to tell you stop smoking the bowls and go to sleep.
Put down the booth, dog,
Exactly. Just go to sleep, boy.
Knock out, man. Tomorrow will be better. So it puts you in a position where our hero, Charlie, is legit. And it goes back to like almost like Andy in Child's Play, where no one believes him, but he has 100% proof, like you said, the night before Jerry gave him the ultimatum, like, look, man, you're blowing up my spot, dude. You're blowing it up real hard. I need you to relax, and I'll spare you and your mother. Because I'm just in here now. I could just handle it if I wanted to, but I'm going to give you the gentleman's agreement. You leave me alone, I leave you alone. And Andy, of course, being a stupid nerd, tries to use the cross on him. He's like, okay, now I see how you want to go about it. And now he's on a clock, right? He's like, you have until tomorrow night to say your prayers because I'm coming back. It's like, what do you do in a world where everybody knows vampires are fake? You know what I mean? It's made up stuff, but on the off chance it's real, what do you do, right? I love that idea of it being modern setting and having the lore of vampires just floating around. How do you feel about that?
I'm not sure. Like, I'm really not. Like, if I just knew my neighbor's a vampire, one, I'd be just like, okay, time to go to a fucking church. Two, I don't know if I'd be proactive or just like defensive and like, hey guy, I know the rules. Don't come in here or else you're going to have a bad time.
But the thing is my biggest problem with this movie is like, what was Charlie's plan? Like to piss off this vampire? Or like this ageless, super strength having mutative teleportation creature? What are you going to do? Call the cops on him, dog?
I mean, I think his plan was just to have the adults take care of the situation because he's still a child.
Okay. And this is something that's not explained in the movie. Yes, he's in high school, but what grade is he in? He doesn't seem like a senior.
I'd say 17.
17, 16. It's kind of the age they're going for, maybe. Because he seems
about 17 in general. I think that's like the best way to define him.
Because between Marcy Darcy, we're going to get into Amy, because Amy's a whole conversation, and my boy Evil, they all kind of look between 18 and 17.
Why is Evil your boy?
Evil's the man, dude. He's my favorite character
he's
in this movie.
Awful.
Evil is stupid. I love Evil, man. He's the MacGuffin, dude. Evil is he's Captain Exposition. He informs the movie, dude. He's one of my favorite vampires of all time. Because he's such a goofball. Nerd. He's a nerd, goofball, loser vampire. You know, you only get that like in Buffy the Vampire Slayer and stuff, you know? Evil, Doug.
Evil is just like, okay, let's just go down the list. Let's go from there and we go through all that stuff.
Yeah, let's just talk about Evil, bro. Evil had the coolest transformation.
Evil
knows the rules, so he constantly messes with Peter Vincent and bends the rules in mid-fight.
So he's not really even Charlie's friend. Let's put it that way. He's not even Charlie's friend.
He's just a dude that floats around Charlie and Amy.
Yeah, exactly. Like they're not really.
He's a tag along. Yeah,
it's just like I know this guy. He's an acquaintance.
Yeah, dude. I invited myself into your house. I'm paying you money to give me info on vampires because I'm not that into it. You're super into it, and he's like, I can't turn down a fool on his. I can't take away a fool from his money or something. He says like that. He's not even his friend. It's just some dude who constantly gives him shit during high school, dude. You know, but Evo comes through in the clutch. Even though Evo is partly the fault. No. It's not Evo's fault. It's all Charlie's fault, honestly.
Yeah, no, it is. It's entirely Charlie's fault. Charlie fucked up every time.
If Charlie would have minded his own damn business and not been snooping around, none of this. Because by the end of this movie, everybody's lives are irreparably changed.
Oh, yeah. Also, don't like peep in on people doing the do. That's
a bad look, bro.
That's weird.
That's a bad look.
That's super freaking weird.
Don't do that. And that's a real life, like just PSA to anyone within the sound of our voices. If you see your neighbors doing the do, don't stare directly at them like Michael Myers. It's weird. And now they know you know, and it makes it weird. Don't do that. Don't do it. And this is a message for all ages. This is E for everyone. Just don't do that. Be like, they're doing it. And close your blinds.
Or be just like, okay. Bye, have fun.
Yeah, you close your blinds, you keep it pushing, man. Because if they see you seeing them, that neighbor relationship will constantly will be changed irreparably forever. You know what I mean? Don't do it. That's a pro tip from your boys at Masters of the Nerdverse. Evo with the iconic cross burned. That's an X burned into his head. You know what I mean? He's such a cool look, dude.
Whenever Evil like first gets like bought into the power, I really did like it because he's so vulnerable and like just everybody gets to really know that he's just so pathetic.
Yeah,
and he hates himself.
Evo, man. There's a scene where Evo's in mid-transformation back from being a wolf because he learns how to wolf transfer that soon into his receiving the dark gift or whatever. He already knows how to polymorph, and I'm like, that's a pro tip. That's a pro move. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how is he doing that? But then I remember he knows all the rules. So it's like if anybody would just get bit tonight and be like, okay, can I try to do this? He tried it and he figured out how to polymorph like day 2 of being a vampire. You know what I mean? I think that was kind of neat. But when he's transforming back and he's sobbing to Peter Vincent almost has his face or like where he feels bad for him. It's like a really emotional scene. I'm like, why is this in my popcorn horror movie?
Exactly. It's actually just kind of nice. But also, Evil's kind of like the turning point, in my opinion, from being this kind of like a campy kind of movie to actual body horror stuff.
Yeah.
In general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Evil, God, the way he just laughs and points his finger while covering his mouth is such a like tactical grade schooler look in the first place. It really makes you feel like, man, he's just not mature in any way. And he's given ultimate power and like the need to murder people. Yeah, that's great.
That's what I'm saying. Evo's my favorite in this movie, dude. He has the weirdest arc. Like, Evo goes from, man, you're crazy, to, man, I want to live, but man, I'm not scared. What's going to happen if I walk down the alley and Dracula's going to get me? What happens if Dracula gets you? And he accepted the gift. I mean, Jerry, of course, I'm sure Jerry used some of his glamour on him and got him lured in, but Evo took his hand, dude. He didn't have to do that. Could have been a guy.
Yeah, Evil kind of like did the bad.
He did the bad. He accepted the
I will
gift.
say he tries to outright kill Vincent every time he can.
Vince is always one step ahead. Vincent always... Okay, let's talk about Peter Vincent for a second. Let's transfer to Peter Vincent, dog. Vampire Slayer, dude.
Actor turned apparently vampire expert killer.
Dude, Peter Vincent is kind of like a send-off to the old Hammer films. Kind of like... He reminds me of Peter Cushing during all those old Hammer films, right? That's what he's supposed to be. The seasoned vampire slayer on TV, mind you. And why couldn't Charlie see that deviation other than he's just extremely immature? You know what I mean? Like, this man's an actor. He's not a real life vampire killer.
He's not immature. He's just full of reason, and vampires are unreasonable.
Vampires are very unreasonable. You cannot reason with a vampire. That being said, Peter Vincent has an amazing arc in this movie. From being the get out of my face guy to seeing the truth, from having a complete meltdown to finally becoming what he's played as so many years. He actually, by the end of this movie, he is a vampire slayer.
Yeah, and it's kind of hilarious because he has the whole get up and like the tests and whatnot.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, don't worry, sir. We'll pinch into to a cross. Oh, it's sacrilegious? Well, don't worry. We'll just like give you some holy water. Or
yeah. Whatever. It's tap water. It's for the kid, man. And that's how you know, because even Jerry checked it in the light. He was like, okay, this is fine. Because Peter Vincent didn't go down and get it blessed. You know, that's why he drank it so fine. But when he checked his reflection in the mirror, that's when Peter Vincent loses it. Because he even checked it twice. He was like, okay, am I tripping? It's like, no, this guy legit doesn't have a reflection. And that's where he went into full panic mode. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. Like, as soon as he turns around, it's like, yo, I can't see this man in the mirror. Oh, my God.
We out. You know? Played by the amazing Roddy McDowell. Rest in peace. Also the voice of Scarecrow in Batman the Animated Series.
Is he?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I didn't know that.
No. He's not the voice of Scarecrow. He's the voice of the Mad Hatter. I take that back. The Mad Hatter. He's the voice of the Mad Hatter. That's not possible. Yeah, I just really like the character development of Peter Vincent being from like, look, man, I played that on a TV screen. Peter Vincent's not even my real name, dude. You know, like, I'm an actor. You know, but he's like, no, we got to step up. My friends are going to die. I'm going to die if you don't. I need another warm body that kind of knows what he's doing to help me out with this situation. And to bounce back to Charlie, there's moments in this film where I forget the actor who plays Charlie, but he shows moments of pure desperation. Just like Andy in Child's Play. It's like, this thing is going to kill me and nobody believes me.
Can we get back to Peter just for an instant?
Absolutely.
He's like facing off against Evil at the very end.
Mm-hmm.
And Evil goes through the excruciating body transformation scene.
Love that scene. It's amazing.
It feels a little drawn out, to be honest.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, like, his empathy to Evil is hilarious.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a moment where Evil is reaching out to him saying help in his garbled monster mouth voice. And Peter Vincent, for a split second, is like, okay. And then he's like, no. You just tried to rip my throat out, werewolf. You know? And he backs away. And it's that moment of like you said, Evil's a very sensitive character. There's moments where he cries. There's a moment where he's pleading. The master will kill you for this.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff, you know?
It's actually pretty great.
That's what I'm saying. Evil's rules, dude.
But Vincent is, I think Vincent is better because he just has like the better acting chops in general.
Well, it's Roddy McDowell, man. The guy's a beast. He's classically trained thespian, dude. You know? So he kills the role. I think he's the most, between him and Sarandon, who plays, Jerry, those two guys just kind of carry this movie, you know.
That's actually very true. But Charlie, I don't like Charlie. He's a dum-dum.
You know who I don't like, Charlie? You know who I don't like more than Charlie?
Amy.
Amy's kind of the worst, dude.
Oh man, Amy was just kind of how do I put it? She was very presumptuous a lot of times.
Amy, played by, and I'm getting the actress's name now, who, one of my favorite actresses, just because she was on Married with Children as Marcy Darcy for so many years, but I want to get her actual name. Amanda Bierce is who plays Amy. I kind of hated this character only because she was so also immature. You know what I'm saying? Like, that was causing to question their age. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like Charlie constantly trailing off because his focus is directly on the body bag that's next door to a horror geek. Like, who's not going to focus on that? She gets visibly upset, like the scene where she slams the burger in his face in front of everybody because he's watching the news about a recent murder. You know, like, how's that not going to draw away your attention? Because she's getting frustrated with Charlie because they're both having issues with committing.
I mean, the only reason Amy is like frustrating is because Charlie is worse as a person.
Yeah,
Amy's like overreactions to Charlie's antics is frustrating for the audience because they want to dislike that, but they really can't because Charlie's the reason they're all so awful.
But to be honest, Charlie has good reason because there's a literal vampire out to kill him. You know, the dichotomy kind of changes when, the vampire says, "Tonight you," and you're on the clock. You know what I mean? That kind of pressure would change anyone. You know it's real because the dude just choked you out the night before.
Yeah, exactly.
So Amy doesn't know this. They legit come at it from the real world perspective. My friend is unhealthy. My boyfriend is sick. We need to help him understand that this isn't real. I will pay you money, Peter Vincent, to put on a little show for my boyfriend so he can finally get over this. You know, until it gets real, until Jerry has his night out and pretty much flips the entire squad, but Charlie and Peter Vincent. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And to be honest, Amy's, her dilemma of being basically violated physically and mentally by a vampire is really just sympathetic because, oh my God, that's awful.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's talk about Amy's Amy's fragility as well as her virginity.
It's just basically mental rape being dominated by a vampire like that.
And it's a seduction of the innocent, right? It's the seduction of the innocent. It's, and of course, this is one trope I hate in vampire movies is, you look just like my love from 17,000 years ago. You know, I must have you. And which is ludicrous, but fine, here we are. And Jerry's infatuation with Amy, and Amy's kind of breaking, because then again, we know that Jerry bit her, but we don't know if anything else actually happened, right? It's not spelled out, is it?
It's not, but at the same time, it's heavily implied.
Given the track record,
it's still an emotional rape as it is physical. Like this total physical contact is something that she's does not want, but because vampires are essentially sexual predators as well as physical predators, it just happens.
Yeah, can you imagine the therapy bills after that? Like, yeah. So how did you lose? How were you deflowered? How did you come into being a woman? Oh, I was mentally and physically assaulted by a centuries-old vampire. You know, and my boyfriend was helpless to help me. So I have issues, a couple of issues. You know, that tends to, and that's the unspoken part about this movie. Like you said, it's very sympathetic. You know, it's just the Amy arc. You know, even though she had some great special effects, her makeup effect was yes campy now, but back then was terrifying. This movie used to give me nightmares as a kid.
It was more so her open gaping maw when she was able to fool Charlie in the basement was actually pretty nice.
Yes. The makeup effects in this movie altogether are just really good. I'm not sure who does it. I think K&B actually did the makeup effects for this movie. Who went out?
I don't know anything about makeup, so I couldn't tell you.
No worries. K&B is the group that went on to do The Walking Dead. Like many, many years later. I think they did the effects for Chronicles of Narnia as well.
Oh, okay. That's pretty legit then.
They're up there. K&B is up there with like Stan Winston's Institute and things like that, and Rick Baker and, the makeup gods. So yeah, this is one of their earlier films, and there's some really good effects in this movie. We mentioned Evo's transformation earlier. We can use this as a segue to talk about the vampire himself. What's his name? Jerry Dandridge, I think.
Yes, it is Jerry Dandridge,
played by Chris Sarandon.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And he, as he should, steals every scene he's in. You know, the guy's just so good. Also, a Child's Play alum, because he was also in the first Child's Play.
Oh, he was. I forgot about that.
Mm-hmm. He played the police officer that was investigating Andy and his mom. You know?
Yeah, I forgot about that entirely. Good catch.
Yeah, man. And you don't even put it together in your brain because he's playing such different characters, right?
Yeah, and honestly, I will say, he did well in both movies.
Chris Sarandon's a beast, man. He's one of those actors I just love seeing pop up in old movies. Like, oh, I didn't know you were in The Changeling or something like that. You know, like he's one of those actors, man. But how do you feel about your 80s sweater wearing, you know, big giant jacket wearing modern vampire? Jerry. You know? Yeah.
Jerry is one, a stupid ass vampire name. Two, why is he always eating so much apples?
He loves apples so much, dude.
Oh my god. It's like he's like the progenitor of the bad guy trope of I have to eat an apple because I'm evil.
I have to eat an apple because I'm evil, and I have to eat everything, core included. Here's a scene where he's eating an apple and he throws it at Charlie. It is literally a scooped out crescent moon of an apple and the core has been eaten. That's how you know he's weird. I don't know if that was a touch, but like he's just a vampire. But why do vampires like apples? Is that a thing?
No, it's not. It's just I'm evil. I will do this.
I will do this. One thing I love about Jerry as Jerry the vampire is he's up there with top 10 vampires of all time because he's so swaggy, dude. He has so much swag.
It's like in the later half when it becomes more like monstrous that things become really cool. Like whenever Jerry starts moaning in absolute terror at the crosses. Yeah. It was actually really good. It actually kind of really portrayed the inhuman aspect of the vampire.
Yeah, like he's starting to revert back. And the cool thing about Jerry is that he knows the rules too. So he's playing with Charlie the whole time, this cat and mouse, double talking and things like that. It's like, hey, when his mom invites Jerry over, apropos of nothing, Jerry's just like, yeah, I wouldn't just come over your house without you inviting me, right? But now that you've invited me, I'm just going to come over whenever I want.
I'm going to take your mother.
Did you just see Charlie staring in absolute agape horror, you know? And he's like, tonight, you know? And Jerry's just the smoothest vampire ever. Because he's probably a couple 100 years old and probably have had to deal with this situation before, of course, right?
Yeah, of course. And his little undead monster, whatever, Billy.
Buddy. Yeah, let's talk about him first for a split second.
I'm going to talk about Jerry because Jerry's better.
Jerry is better, though. Yeah.
Whenever Jerry starts turning into a vampire, it becomes more of that archaic vampire. Like, I command you, awaken.
Yeah. Very Hammer. Very Christopher Lee, right? Very
Which
Hammer.
Is great.
Which is great. And that's why I love this movie, is because it goes back to that, when especially the crucifix scenes where he's like, stay back. And he does that moan and his eyes bug out and he starts to back up. You know what I mean?
I mean, there's three scenes I want to kind of go over real quick. One is whenever Peter regains his faith somehow.
I love
and
that scene.
Pushes Jerry back entirely.
Yes, that's why Peter Vincent's so good in this movie, is because he has a full arc. He keeps telling him, you need faith, you need absolute faith for that to work, which you don't have because you're a fraud. But then Peter Vincent finally gets the faith and drives him back himself, and it's like, yeah, that's a feel good moment, dude.
And then there's whenever Jerry is how do I put this? It's when he is in the basement and just screaming in pain and terror at all the sunlight filtering through. That was really cool too.
Yeah, where he's in full prosthetics and he does that moan again, but he does it harder. And he has this power where if he moans hard enough, you just get blown by the winds, dude. You know?
Yeah, that's actually pretty dope.
Oh, he's like charging up like Goku,
and when he's in his coffin. Oh, quick aside. In the coffin, they're transferring his grave dirt. Did you notice that during one of the scenes?
No. Very old school.
Yeah, this is actually classical vampire lore. Vampires have to be in the sarcophagus with the dirt from their graves when they were alive, or in some cases, the dirt from their homelands
Yeah.
in order to survive. So, in one scene, whenever Vincent and Charlie are trying to take care of Amy, Jerry and Billy,
Billy,
are in the basement transferring dirt from his old coffin to his new coffin.
and they do. And the thing I like about the Jerry Billy is that they're so casual. They're just like, yeah, everything's going all right.
Dangerously gay, which is kind of interesting to see here and there, because like whenever Jerry wraps his arms around Billy,
Yeah,
it's flirtatious, but you could also say honestly, because it's a vampire, it's a domineering master relationship.
it's a different take on the master, like you said, the master servant relationship, sub and dom, right?
I mean, Billy is. I think there's some kind of term for it. It's not familiar. It's like
he's a ghoul. Billy's
a ghoul is a good way to put it. Yeah. I think that's what it is. I think he legit just eats the bodies of Jerry's victims after he's done draining them.
Yep, he's a ghoul. He's I don't know if he's as old as Jerry, but he's pretty up there because the man just turns into ash when he's dispatched of. But yeah.
Yeah, and there's also the fact that whenever the last scene I have in mind is whenever Jerry's staked by Vincent, there's that really that really bad effect of he's on a basically, you know how it is behind the scenes. He's on a table and he just goes straight vertical.
Yeah, he does the Nosferatu, dude. He does the old school Nosferatu rise.
Admittedly, I made my wife watch this movie the first time, and she just started busting a gut laughing.
Yeah, because it's so bad, but it's an homage, dude. It's a clear homage.
Oh yeah, entirely.
It's just really bad. It was bad. It was bad then. It's bad now.
All right, and I guess then we can move on to Billy, and Billy's like, well, here's the thing. He's got like maybe 7 minutes screen time. That's about it, guys.
But he does command the screen when he's on there, though.
I disagree.
One scene I do like with Billy is the cop scene where the cop comes by and Charlie tries to keep it together. He tries to keep it 100. He tries to keep it together for as long as he can. But Billy is constantly poking holes in what he's talking about. He's like, "Yeah, we could go check out the bags, man. It's no big deal." He's like, "You're not going to find anything because it's just garbage." But I took out the trash.
And Charlie goes, "You'll find Mr.
How about
Jerry
the basement, huh? How about
doing
the basement
of undeath?" And the cop goes,
"What?
Oh, okay, I see. Kill over here." He just
grabs the back of his neck.
He goes from like being a serious cop to, boy, you get the fuck out of this house.
Yeah, he pretty much turned it to his dad. He was like, if I ever hear you coming up to the station with this bullshit again, I'm gonna lock you up forever.
Yeah, and that was such a good break of comedic, and it's almost comedic in its effect, honestly, because it's just a matter of, okay, we're breaking character here right now. Jerry, no.
Yeah.
You're okay. Charlie, you're being an idiot. What the hell?
What the hell, Charlie? You're being an idiot, dude, and you're wasting. Honestly, Charlie could have gotten put into shackles for obstruction of justice or something. He could just go to jail, wasting the cops' time.
Disturbance. It's mostly just being a domestic disturbance at that point.
100%. So, and I think Billy was quite good in that role for that moment. So, and I like that he's like you said, the familiar, the ghoul, the Renfield, so to speak. He bleeds ectoplasm. He had one of the best deaths in the movie when he just
whenever his skeleton is like very kind of liquidy and mobile and going up and down. That was actually kind of disgusting.
Nice. It was a very nice effect. And like you said earlier, this is a tale of two movies, right? The first half of this movie is Charlie legit crazy 80s fun kind of high schooly PG movie, right? The second half of this movie is filled with nudity, sex, violence, and gory explosions. You know what I mean? So it's like this movie doesn't kind of want to know what it wants to be, or its transition wasn't as smooth as it could have been. You know?
Okay, I know what I'm confusing for Renfields now. All right, people from Nerdiverse, here's some nerd fucking lore.
Let's do it.
Renfield is the psychic thrall of Dracula in Bram Stoker's Dracula novel.
Mm-hmm.
He's the mortal servant of Dracula. So, thing one. Thing two, Renfield syndrome is actually the clinical term for people who believe they're vampires due to a psychological disorder. So, Renfield is the common term for people who think they're vampires but are in actuality mentally unwell. And 3. I am a big fan of the Harry Dresden Files series. Renfields are a thing in this universe where they are people who are psychically shattered by existing vampires to do all their entire biddings. That's likely all 3 where I draw my sources from.
Nice.
Whoops.
Quote your sources. It makes the podcast stronger.
Yeah, I just did a quick Google search. I'm just like, Renfield vampires? Oh.
So you're like me. Like once I fall down the rabbit hole, it's kind of like, let's go. Let's just dig. Let's get it. I need to understand, right? So there is.
If you want a rabbit hole, go look up 40K universe lore, man.
You and your 40K. Are there vampires in 40K?
Kind of, actually.
Do they wear sweaters like Jerry Dandridge?
They could if they wanted to, but they're mostly like psychic, emotional torture vampires.
Then they are insuperior.
Well, there are actually vampires in Age of Sigmar, which is the fantasy version of that, and they are really hardcore badass vampires. Like, oh my god!
Random vampire question: if you're strong-willed, can you defend against a vampire's lore, or is just anyone up for game?
What do you mean by vampire lore? Can you explain?
I'm sorry, the vampire glamour, the gaze.
Oh, okay. So yes, I believe the common lore is vampires are psychically strong. They can press their will on somebody. If you are strong, or in this case, stubborn enough, you might be able to push it off of you. However, this isn't really easy to do. There's actually a really good example in Salem's Lot by Stephen King.
Mm-hmm.
So
very, very good.
One of the kids, the kid main protagonist in Salem's Lot, sees a buddy of his at his window, fully vampirized, like needle teeth, corpse eyes, the whole works. And the kid is getting seduced by the vampire's will to come to the window and let him in. However, the kid's will, because it's not so rigid and form-like an adult, it's more imaginative and freeform, is able to squirm out just enough to grab a cross and brandish in the vampire's face and cause the vampire immense suffering. So it's, in that case, a speculation of what is the loose boundaries between the form of psyche for adults versus children, and that is played a lot, actually, into other Stephen King books, such as It.
Or The Shining.
And The Shining, entirely The Shining.
Yeah.
Kids' psyches are so malleable and soft, able to adapt to hard situations that they are more or less easy.
Immune.
They're easy to deflect and not be subjected to hardcore psychic pressures like an adult's mind, because an adult is like glass. It is formed and hardened and shaped thoroughly. If it's put into too much pressure, it will just break.
I like this podcast. I'm a fan of our own podcast. It's moments like these that make me like, I love doing this stuff, man. And podcasting rules.
I know, right? It's like nerd lore.
Nerd lore. Learn it. I don't want to spoil the complete ending of this movie, even though we've kind of done so already. I'm sure you can I'm sure you can get a grip on the ending.
It's a 30-plus-year-old movie, Mike. It's already spoiled.
Fine. Vampire dies. Amy's okay.
And another vampire lives.
Or something in the house.
Oh, it's evil.
It's not evil. Evil super exploded.
No, it has evil's voice. It goes, "You're so cool, Brewster."
But I think that was just like an 80s kind of ending voice clip that they threw at the end.
I disagree. It was fully evil.
You know what? It makes me think it's something else. It's because Peter Vincent alluded to it in his show. He was like, tonight we're not looking towards the depths of the caverns. Tonight we're looking towards the stars. And he plays Revenge of the Octopus People. So I think I'm going to go on a limb. It was an alien with glowing red eyes.
Okay, no.
That sounds just like evil.
No.
Uh-huh.
We're not bringing in freaking illithids from D&D into this bullshit. Mike, we're not doing this today.
One thing I will mention before we can go into our scores is that there's, and this is for my pops who loves this one old horrible horror movie called Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things. It's an old zombie movie from like the 70s. And early in the film, I want to say it's playing on Charlie's TV while him and Amy are kind of making out the first time around. So I want to give a shout outs to one, Children Shouldn't Play with Dead Things, or it could have been Carnival of Souls. It's one of those two. I always get those two movies mixed up. And of course, Revenge of the Octopus People, which plays at the very end of the movie. I'm a big fan of what's playing on TV during horror movies, because it's always an allusion to the film. You know what I mean? Like in The Howling, they were playing like the Wolfman with Lon Chaney. You know, I love it. It's my favorite thing in the world. Kind of seeing what's playing on the background. One big one you'll always see is Night of the Living Dead, because Night of the Living Dead, it's open domain, so anybody can make a Night of the Living Dead movie or show Night of the Living Dead content without being copyright stricken.
That's fair.
Yeah, it's not fair to George A. Romero, but it is fair.
No, I mean, it's understandable. I mean, it's like you can get it.
Yeah, if we wanted to write a Night of the Living Dead remake, we could just do it, you know, and not fear any blowback on that. I love this movie. This is one of those movies that was on when I was a kid. It was just in the background. So I've seen this movie maybe 20, 30 times in my whole life.
It's really great.
I love what it does. It says, hey, horror nerd, there's a real vampire in your backyard. What do you do? How do you handle it? Who do you tell? Who's going to believe you? Who's down to fight with you no matter what? These are questions, you know? Like, what would you do in this situation? You know? And it answers that. Even though Charlie is kind of the worst character in the movie.
Yeah.
Because it's all his fault. It's literally all his fault. There could have I don't know how long that would have lasted, but there was a live and let live kind of truce that could have happened, but Charlie wasn't having it.
I mean, it also is like the ethical boundary. Should I let the vampire live and kill so many people I know?
Yeah. What happens when Jerry accidentally kills Evo? Is Charlie supposed to be quiet? You know, he was going to meet Amy eventually, and there was going to be drama no matter what, because Amy was his ancient love. You know what I mean?
This is why vampires are the worst, because they're just literally sexual predators, and that's one of the worst evils out there.
100%. And they've never not been sexual predators. You know, since
like
1930, Twilight. You know, like since 1931, dude. Twilight. If you don't stop,
Twilight is full of sexual predators. Holy hell!
If you don't stop, we're gonna do an MOT introspective on Twilight.
I will quit. You're on your own for a freaking new hot podcast, buddy.
The books, the movies, Doug. The breakfast cereals, we're gonna review all of it, dog.
This breakfast cereal?
I don't know, probably. Twilight.
I'm gonna like force feed you Warhammer 40k lore at one point if we do this stuff.
Nah, man, I'm a benevolent master of the Nerdiverse. I wouldn't, subject you to such horrors, man. Mm-hmm. You know, even though there is a Twilight section of the Nerdiverse that no one goes to, you know. It exists there. So, Austin, if you were to score this film from 0 to 5 stakes to the heart, what would you score it?
I would say 4 out of 5.
Ooh, you're right there with me. Mm-hmm. Expunge. Why?
It's just like it's a nice movie because it goes from really campy almost kind of like campy suburbia kind of movies. Like it takes the piss out of a lot of aspects of itself pretty quickly. However, around 30 minutes when Jerry just invades Charlie's bedroom and just manhandles him and transforms, it goes through a quickly sliding scale into the actual horror genre. And it does it well. It has like a good classical story. It's a modern take on vampire invading your boundaries, stealing your girl, and motherfucker needs to be staked.
Mr. Steal Girl. This movie, as I mentioned earlier, was Scream before Scream. I
can see that.
In my opinion,
Scream 1, 2, 3, or 4.
The whole introspective on Scream, even the TV shows.
Screams 1 and 4 are probably the best.
Scream 1 and 4 is the best, just hands down. Isn't that the way with Wes Craven stuff? Like Nightmares 1 and 3 are the best ones. You know what I mean? It's never like it goes 1 then 2, and it never like depreciates chronologically. It's always like 1 and 5 are great. Don't watch 3. 7 is amazing, you know. But this movie knows the rules of vampires. Vampires exist in this universe. They don't only exist; they're fictional with the werewolf and you know, the creature of the Black Lagoon. It's just like if this was real life, right? They're fictional characters, and it puts you in a position where, okay, reality is gone. This is a real threat. You, child, how do you get through this? And that idea alone is a submersion of the genre, and I love it. I would also give this a 4, just a solid 4 out of 5. It does have its problems because, you know, some of the acting performances aren't great. The special effects are amazing. I mentioned before the pacing's a little off with this one. A little bit. I wish they would have I wish the wind up to Jerry, because Jerry's breaking into the house is a little abrupt for me. You know what I mean? Even though they do it, it's shot well. It's the shot itself as well. I just wish the movie was maybe a hair shorter. They could have cut off some of the fat.
There's a few drawn out scenes.
Yeah, where you could have put that time towards something else. You know what I mean?
Yeah, agreed.
I think Jerry's one of my favorite vampires just because he's so swaggy. He's so confident. He knows the rules of the game. He manipulates the situation. And of course, Evo, one of my favorite vampires of all time. You know, because he's another goofball that just that does more than he should in this movie. You know what I mean? Oh, but yeah, I love this is kind of our capper to the October month. You know, this is probably going to come out sometime in November. Yeah, a little bit after. It's still fall. You know, it's Halloween till Christmas. So yeah, any last thoughts about this movie before we close this bad boy out?
Vampires are always fun because they should be evil ass creatures without any kind of redeeming factors, because they're basically just parasites on humans. So I'm glad that this movie kind of did that, even though there weren't a whole lot of redeeming vampire stories back in the day. This one was really one of the classical ones of evil, oh my god, run.
I think one of my favorite lines from Jerry, and this kind of encapsulates what I feel about this film, is that, hey, Charlie, I'm going to give you something I never got, which is a choice. This makes me think, okay, what's Jerry's origin story? You know, was he fighting next to Vlad against, you know, on the hills of Transylvania? Like, we don't know, but it makes you sympathetic for every character on a certain level.
Well, it makes me think that if to answer that question, not be something in the sequel, but who's going to watch that goddamn sequel?
Don't watch anything other than this film. I'm just telling you now. Don't watch the sequel. Don't watch the remake. Don't watch the weird sequel to the remake. Don't watch any of it. Just this movie. Don't do it. You'll hurt yourself. It's one of those.
Exactly.
So I definitely recommend this film. I recommend it to anyone who wants a good popcorn movie night. I recommend to anyone who's a fan of Married with Children. Just watch it. Love and Marriage. Where can we find you, Austin?
Austin Ozzy on Twitter, sometimes on Twitch, and that's pretty much where you're going to find me.
You can find me in St. Louis rolling on dubs. You can find this podcast at our website, which is mastersofthenerdiversecast.com, where we have all of our episodes archived. That's about 200 episodes worth of MOTN goodness. You know,
exactly.
If we were a candy bar, we'd be full of nougat. Delicious nougat. You can always find us on our social media channels, primarily Twitter, at mnerdiverse. Come holler at your boy. Follow us. If you want to support the channel monetarily, you can always do so via Patreon, patreon.com/MOTN. If you give us the monies, the podcast will grow like the Cloverfield monster, just swirling in the cut. Just let it undulate. But if you want to support us non-monetarily, you can always do so by liking our content, by subscribing to our channels, and by commenting on our episodes, because feedback is amazingly important.
Entirely so.
Yes, we need to know. Is this a good episode? Can we have been funnier? Could our content be sharper? We need to go from 4K to 8K by next year. Otherwise, we will become obsolete. So help us grow. If this is your first episode, you say, hey, I love Fright Night. What are these guys talking about? And you've listened to the episode and enjoyed it, I would like to say thank you and welcome to the Nerdiverse. I've, of course, been your host, Mike G.
And I have been your also host,
Austin. And we will always ask you to look towards the skies. Look towards the skis.
Skies!
It's skis, the Simpsons told me.